I know what you are thinking when you're reading this title. If 8 out of 10 uh, queer people are not open about their sexual or gender identity, how can you be inclusive towards them? That's simple. Let's go back to the three main problems we face. I believe it was the second that we addressed, where we said we live in a heteronormative society. Um, Take away the norm. Let the norm be neutral. Like, consider in your job ad to add at the end of the job title simply MFX, male, female, non-binary. That's the first sign to show that if you do not fall within the gender binary, read this job ad and you're welcome to apply. In the job text, avoid using gender pronouns. Try using they and them instead. Because if you say he or if you say she, you immediately assume the gender of your future employee. You'll see a lot of job ads for engineers using he, and in a way it's normal maybe because of course 80 to 90% of all engineers are male, but it's not going to be beneficial to create the female people who can become an engineer. Try to be gender neutral in everything you do, and if you can, and if you have it, add your company's commitment to diversity and inclusion in the bottom of your job ad. And if you don't have one, reach out to us so we can create one together with you. And please don't forget to add gender and sexual identity in your commitments. During the interview, I actually personally have a rule, less is more. I mean, there's a time and place for everything. A job interview is not a place for you to know more about trans people. I've been in that situation personally, where I've had an amazingly interesting conversation with a future employer about trans issues. But at the end of the interview, we realized that we didn't have a job interview, but we had a conversation about gender identity, which left me unsuitable for the job. Sadly, this is something a lot of queer people can have during a job interview. Don't ask, don't tell. Just it's not something that should be discussed in a job interview. But you might notice that the candidate might want to talk about it, that your candidate might be interested to know how inclusive is your company, how safe is your company for a queer person. I always recommend not to fish about the gender or sexual identity of your candidates, but you can always ask open questions like, how can we support you to feel more welcome in our company? And then leave it up to them. If you have an inclusive job ad, like we saw on the previous page, if you asked for a person's pronouns in the beginning of the interview and then you ask this question, then I think you give every incentive to a person, if it's important to them, to pick it up and to just talk about it at the end of the interview.